How's it going, guys? Vaibhav here, and today we talk about the OnePlus 9 Pro. Undoubtedly, this is OnePlus's camera-centric flagship smartphone, and that's one thing that's been lacking for OnePlus over the last couple of years. Now, while I don't have the smartphone with me, my good friend Kevin the Tech Ninja actually allowed me to borrow some of his footage, a lot of his footage rather, to make this video possible. Now, if you want to check out Kevin's perspective on the OnePlus 9 Pro, make sure you do that from the links down in the description. But in this video, we're going to go over the top features of the OnePlus 9 Pro. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. One of the biggest focus points of the OnePlus 9 Pro is the camera. Here you find Hasselblad's color science for what OnePlus likes to call the new standard in color. There's a quad camera setup on the OnePlus 9 Pro with some very high-end optics. Its main sensor is a 48 megapixel Sony IMX789 with optical image stabilization and a 1x1.43 inch sensor. The ultra-wide goes for a 50 megapixel Sony IMX766 with a 1x1.56 inch sensor and no optical image stabilization. This one's a bit special because it uses a freeform lens design, and what this means is the overall pictures from your ultra-wide-angle lens are supposed to be distortion-free compared to, let's say, other flagships we have with the ultra-wide-angle lens. So you get less of a fisheye look, and plus the ultra-wide-angle camera lens also doubles as a macro lens, which is one of my favorite features now returning from the OnePlus 7T. Then there's an 8 megapixel telephoto camera with a 3.3x optical zoom range, which is a bit of an underwhelming zoom range if you ask me, considering all of the teasers we've seen from the OnePlus 9 series in general have teased images from the moon, and that sort of got me thinking why OnePlus didn't go for an optical zoom range of up to 10x like we've seen on the Galaxy S21 Ultra, for example. But this kind of makes sense because Hasselblad's partnership is really to showcase that Hasselblad was one of the first people to actually make photography from the moon possible, and in that way the moon teasers make sense, but otherwise you only get 3.3x optical zoom on the OnePlus 9 Pro, as well as 30x digital zoom. And lastly, to sort of complete the quad camera setup, you get a 2 megapixel mono camera, which I think is just there to make up the numbers. In fact, even OnePlus's official FAQ guidelines tends to dismiss this camera sensor, so I don't know what's going on. Whether or not this is useful or not remains to be seen. Of course, you get a 16 megapixel Sony IMX789 selfie camera in there as well, and I don't really have any picture samples to show you, but definitely visit Kevin's video to check out some picture samples as well as video samples with the OnePlus 9 Pro. You can go all the way up to 8K 30 FPS, which is of course a new feature on the 9 Pro. So that's probably the most tempting feature of the OnePlus 9 Pro series, but let's move on to the display. Here you get a 6.7 inch Quad HD Plus Fluid Display 2.0. This is an AMOLED LTPO panel, which can go all the way up to 120Hz refresh rate, but also go all the way down up to 1Hz to save battery life. This has never been replicated before, so this is pretty much the best panel you can get in terms of refresh rate variance, so OnePlus has that covered. And even with DisplayMate's rating, you get an A+ score, which of course means this display is good. And looking at the B-roll footage that Kevin sent me, as well as the overall specifications of the phone, Quad HD Plus, 20.1:9 aspect ratio, as well as the Dolby Atmos powered stereo speakers, you're looking at an absolutely phenomenal multimedia experience. I only wish that OnePlus has looked into sort of the supply chain issues it's faced in the past. So if you don't know, the OnePlus 8 Pro of last year actually faced issues with its display, not displaying colors accurately, as well as suffering from green tinting issues. I hope OnePlus has fixed that, especially for regions like India, where this issue was very prevalent, and hopefully that way the OnePlus 9 Pro's display specification claims actually live up when it comes to real world usage. And before we cap off and move on to the next section, let me just tell you that there is Corning Gorilla Glass protection on the phone as far as the display is concerned, but we don't know which version of this Gorilla Glass OnePlus has opted for. Arguably, the heart and soul of the phone is what's inside, and here you find the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 octa-core processor. For markets like the USA, this is probably a very common SoC, but here in the UAE, we have yet to experience the processor. I'm pretty sure performance will be no issue whatsoever, especially coupled with up to 256 gigabytes of UFS 3.1 storage and 12 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. Things like 5G and smooth Oxygen 11 performance on top of Android 11 are pretty much no-brainers for the OnePlus typical experience, but I'm pretty sure even for gamers, this smartphone is going to be something special because it does have cooling technology built into the smartphone that basically allows for better thermal performance and more prolonged performance when you're playing high intensity games. And that of course is something that we'll have to wait and find out once I have the phone or once we start to see full reviews of the smartphone. And so far, all of these specifications put together seem very, very impressive, but that's not all. There's a 4500 milliamp hour battery on the OnePlus 9 Pro, which goes from 0 to 100% in 29 minutes, which is absolutely incredible, and this is using Warp Charge 65T from OnePlus. The cherry on top, of course, is the fact that you do get the charging brick as well as the cable for charging the smartphone included with the box. This is something that flagship smartphones from Apple and Samsung have seemingly omitted over the last couple of months, so it's nice to see that OnePlus is not following the trend as of yet. But other than that, you also get Warp Charge 50, which is something that is kind of mind-blowing. So basically, this is a wireless charging protocol from OnePlus where you can charge the OnePlus 9 Pro from 0 to 100% in 43 minutes wirelessly. I think this is faster than even flagship smartphones that charge with the wire, so this is kind of insane, and I'd really like to know if this overheats the smartphone or if it keeps the temperatures of the smartphone well within comfortable levels. Again, this is something that we'll have to learn as we get the phone in our hands. And one of the last things that I want to say is the Warp Charge wireless 50 watt, whatever they call it, will be available separately for $69.99. So that's something that isn't included with the box. And to round up, probably one of the features that you should consider but not so much is of course the OnePlus 9 Pro's design. Now, it doesn't look spectacular, but it does have some sort of visual appeal. It's a 8.7mm smartphone, so definitely a bit towards the thick side, but only 197 grams, which is about 20 to 25 grams lighter than your typical flagship like the Galaxy S21 Ultra. It's a glossy back though, so its appearance might not be for everyone, especially not for me who prefers matte finish smartphones, and even Kevin had to use latex gloves when filming the OnePlus 9 Pro in order to not get any smudges on the back of the panel. So this thing is very, very not fingerprint resistant, although it is IP68 water and dust resistant. So all good on that front, alongside Corning Gorilla Glass protection on the back of the smartphone and the aluminum frame to sort of encase the overall smartphone. But there you have it. That's everything you need to know about the OnePlus 9 Pro officially. Now, in terms of its pricing, that's where things start to get a bit interesting. We've got the OnePlus 9 Pro with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage selling for $969, which is about 3,600 dirhams here in the UAE. And if you want to bump that up to 256GB of storage, so double the storage and 4 more gigabytes of RAM up to 12GB, you're looking at $1,069, which is just shy of the 4,000 dirham price tag here in the UAE. Now, we don't know anything about local availability and when this thing is going to be available locally, but as far as pre-orders are concerned, I'm pretty sure by the time this video is up live on my channel, you should be able to either pre-order the smartphone or know the date the actual pre-order for the smartphone will commence. But that's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Once again, a huge shout out to Kevin for letting me borrow his footage. Check out his videos, check out his channel in the description down below. And of course, if you don't want to miss out any future content from myself, subscribe down below, like this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. This was Vaibhav. Take care and adios.